Hey guys, I'm Michał from mdbootstrap.com, and today I will show you a few really cool CSS tricks for text animation. What's great is that later you can use these tricks not only for text, but also for many other elements. Let's get started. Let's start with a very simple preparation. On the left side I have my code editor, Visual Studio Code. Inside I only have an empty HTML file and nothing else. Additionally, I have installed Live Server extension that enables live reload, so anytime I change anything in my code, the browser will refresh automatically. You don't need this to follow this tutorial, but it's a very useful extension, so if you want, go to View, click Extensions and type Live Server. Here you will find the extension to install. Let's start with basic HTML setup. If you are using Visual Studio Code like me, you can simply type an exclamation mark and the editor will suggest you the markup. Then after saving the file, we can right click on index.html, choose Open with Live Server if you have installed Live Server. If not, just simply drag the index.html file to the browser, and then we can type some text to check if this works. And yes, it does. Now we are ready to start our work. Let's have a look at the first trick. I call it hover go. Can you see this sad demotivating word impossible? So watch it now. Boom! Now it's possible. Isn't that cool? Let's do this. Inside the head section, add a style tags, and here we'll write our CSS. And let's start from preparing the body. So type body, and let's set padding to 0 and margin to 0 as well. It should be 0 here. Alright. Now let's set the background color to black. And now, because we want our heading, our text should be exactly in the middle of the page, we'll use a flexbox to center it horizontally and vertically. So first let's use a display property flex, and then let's add align items center and justify content center. And because it's not the tutorial about Flexbox, I'm not going to explain in details what exactly it does, but if you want, in the description of this video you will find a link to the tutorial about Flexbox where you can find more information about Flexbox. So the last property we need to add is min high 100 viewport units. And what it does for us, let's add some heading. And let's set a color to this heading to text, color. Now we can see it exactly in the middle. So first we set display to flex, so it enables the flexbox, then align items, align it vertically to the center, and then justify content, align it horizontally to the center. So if we remove this, you can see it goes up, and if we remove this, it goes to the left side. Alright. To achieve the effect as I showed you before in the demo, we'll need a special HTML markup. So inside of our h1 heading, we'll add a few span elements, and in the first one there will be I, in the second there will be M, and in the last one there will be possible, and together it makes the word impossible. So now let's change it to I am possible with our CSS. First let's change this white color to something more grayish, and I will use HSL format, and I strongly recommend you to switch from hex to HSL because it's really easy later to adjust the color to your needs. Have a look. Now, if we specify the two first parameters of HSL format to 0, the second one we can choose the lightness, and for example, if we set it to 50%, it's this color. If we set it to 20, it's darker. If we set it to 90, it's almost white. So let's set it to, let's say, 30. All right, and now I think the color is okay. Now let's increase the size of our heading to 50 pixels. Then let's increase the weight to bold and font family to monospace. Now it looks a bit nicer. And maybe let's add some letter spacing so we have a bigger space between letters to 7 pixels. And the last thing I want to add is a cursor pointer. So now when we hover it, we can see the hand. Now we will use two pseudo classes. The first one will be hover and the second one will be anti-age_child, which allows us to specify which child inside of the parent element we want to affect. So inside of h1 we have 3 span elements, and each of these will get through an anti-age child element pseudo class. So let's start with h1 hover and span anti-age child number 1. So with this we'll affect our I letter with the first span inside of our h1 heading. And let's add some margin right to 5 pixel. And now when we hover it, you can see it jumps to the left side by adding margin to the right of the I letter. Now let's use the same pseudo classes, but let's also add one more after, and let's add an empty content here. Actually not empty, because we'll add an apostrophe here. And right now you can see an apostrophe here after hovering our text. And now let's copy this one more time, but instead of the first child, let's type the second child and let's add margin left 30 pixels. All right. Now let's add h1 hover span, and we will add the glow. So the color will be white, or we can use HSL format as we did before, and this will be 0, 0%, and 100%. And I made one mistake, because this M letter shouldn't be inside of the span, so only the letter I and the word possible should be inside of the span, and the M is directly inside of H1, like this. Alright, let's move forward. Now let's add a text shadow, so it will be our actual glow, and let's specify the shadow. Actually it will be multiple layers shadow, And now let's add HSL format 0, 0%, 100%. All right. And let's add 0, the second layer with 20 pixels and the same color. 0, 0%, 100%. Better. And the last layer 0, 0, 0 and 40 pixels. So it will gradually be more and more blurry, so it will imitate the real glow. Perfect. And now we are almost done, but there is one problem. After hovering, our text changes immediately and we want a smooth transition. So what we can do is to add h1 span and transition, and let's change it to 0.5 second, so it will last 0.5 second. And let's add easy out property and have a look at it now. Great. One more word about isOut property. It's a transition timing function that specifies the speed curve of the transition effect. So with this property we can change the speed of the transition. So for example, if we change it to linear, it will have exactly the same speed from the start to the end. And if we change it to isOut, it will slow down at the end. Have a look. Can you see it? So there are a few more properties like isIn, and with this it will start slowly and then speed up. And we can also play with this with more advanced settings, but this is not the topic of this tutorial, so we'll stick with isOut because it suits us the best. The next trick is called shine. Can you see this shine going from left to right across the entire text? Let's create this. I have created a new file, and from the previous project I left the settings for body and h1. And inside of my h1 right now I have a new text, get up and shine. The first thing I want to do is to change this text to uppercase, so let's add text transform uppercase. To achieve this shining effect we need to be smart with CSS. The first thing we need to do is to add a background with a gradient to our text. So let's add a background property with a value linear gradient. And now inside of our parentheses let's set it to the right side. And now of course I will use HSL colors to specify the colors. The first one will be the gray color with 0, 0 and 30% of lightness. Then I will specify the start point to 0, and the second color will be HSL as well, but it will be white color, so 0, 0%, 100%, and I want it to be at 10% of the width of the background. And the last one will be HSL as well, 0, 0% and then 30% and 20%. All right. So this is how it looks. So if you don't know how the gradients works, let me explain it in a few words. So we set it a linear gradient to the right side, so it goes from the left to the right, and we specify that we want to start from the left side with this gray color at 0.0 is a start point, so maximum left side. So if we change it, for example, to the red, you can see it, all right, it's here. Then add 10% of the available width. We want it to be completely white, so let's change it so we can see it. And then we want that from 20% of width, the rest of the background should be gray. Next, we want to clip this background to the text. So we want that this background will be visible only on the space where the text is. Not the entire background, but only inside of the letters. And to do this, we'll use a background clip text, and when we save it, you will see it doesn't work. And that's because we need to use a prefix WebKit to make it work. And now our background disappears, and actually it is over there, but we cannot see it because we need to change our text to the transparent color. So once again, we need to use this WebKit prefix and then text fill color to transparent. And if we save it, now you can see this white color here on the first word. And this is actually our background, background gradient. If I remove these properties, you can see it's here. And if I give it back, it's exactly inside of our letter. Now let's create our animation. I will add animation property, and I will set the value to the shine. And this name actually does not matter. You can use whatever name you want, but you need to remember that later you need to use exactly the same name when we will specify the keyframes. So I will name it shine, and I will specify the duration of this animation to 3 seconds, and I want it to go infinite and linear. So as you remember from the previous project, it will keep the same speed all the time. But if you want, you can play with other values like is out, is in, whatever you want. And now to make it work, we need to specify the keyframes. So let's add the keyframes, and let's use the same name of animation that we used here, so shine. And inside of this object, we need to specify at what keyframe what should happen. So if you are not sure what the keyframes are in CSS, you can treat it like a steps. So if we specify that at 0 keyframe, this is the start of the animation, something should happen, and at the 100% something happens, so it will be an end of the animation. And if we specify it to 50%, something should happen exactly in the middle of our animation. So if it's unclear for you, it will be clear very soon. Let's do it by example. So let's specify a 0%, so the starting point of our animation. And here we want a background position to 0. So do you remember we have linear gradient at the background of our text, and at the start of our animation we want it to be at 0 position, so maximum to the left, and as you can expect, at the end we want it to move to the right. So with around 60%, so something in the middle, we want it to be background position 600 pixels. Why like this? That's because our text has around 550 pixels, so we want our animation to be a little bigger So we will use 600 pixels, and then at the end of the animation we want it to be background position as well 60 pixel. And as you can see, it works, but not exactly as we wish, and that's because we are missing a few properties. So let's fix it now. So right now it starts with the G letter and goes through entire text and finish at T, and that's because our text is around 550 pixels, and as you can see here, we are using 600 pixels, and we want the animation to start and end a bit behind the scenes. So what we can do is to add some padding to the text and let it be 60 pixels. And now it works fine. Thanks to the padding, it starts a bit before G letter and ends a bit beyond the shine word. And as you can see, that's because right now our entire text with a padding is longer than our animation. The next trick is called Typewriter effect, and it imitates typing like in the movie about a journalistic investigation. Let's do this. Again, I have created a new HTML file with the same settings for body and h1, and inside of my heading there is a new text. It was a gloomy, rainy day. Alright, let's start a new project. First of all, for this trick we definitely need a different font, something like more journalistic. So inside of our style, let's add import URL, and we will use this Anonymous Pro font, and you will find a link to this font in the description of this video. And now let's use it here. Let's see how it works. Alright, better, definitely more journalistic. Let's change the color to something more light, like this. And now maybe let's start from creating this tagging line at the end of our text, and we can do this by adding a border right to our h1 heading, and let's add 2 pixels solid HSL 00 and maybe 80% of lightness. Alright, this time our text should look more like a paragraph, so it shouldn't be that big. That's why we'll remove this font size. And now let's create our animation. But before we do this, let's have a look how big our text is. And my console shows me that it's 711 pixels wide, and we'll use that information later. And let's have a look how many characters is here. So let's type character counter, and it says that this sentence has 29 characters. Alright, we'll use this information as well. Now let's add an animation with a value Typewriter. So this is the name of my animation, and as I mentioned before, you can use whatever name you want, but you need to remember later when we specify the keyframes that you should use exactly the same name. And this animation will last 4 seconds and will have steps. And it will have actually 44 steps. And as we've seen before, our sentence has around 30 characters, but we'll divide it to 44 steps, because thanks to this our animation will be smoother. So we could use exactly the same number as the number of our characters, 29, but if we increase the number of steps, it will be just smoother. And now let's specify the direction of the animation. So in normal, it means it will go from left to the right. And now let's another animation. It will be animation for our text cursor for this line. So let's add a comma here. And let's add another animation. I will name it blink text cursor. And it will last 0.5 second. And it will goes infinite. Infinite. Alright. Now the keyframes for the first animation, so Typewriter. And we want to go from 0 width to width, oh sorry, to width 11 pixels, because this is how long our text, our sentence is. And it's kind of broken right now, but we'll fix it very soon. But now let's add a keyframes for the second animation for our blink text cursor. So let's add keyframes. I made a typo. Keyframes blink text cursor from border right. Color HSL colors, and we want it to go from this white, so the same white as it has right now, to the transparent, so it will disappears and appears. Border right, color transparent. So thanks to this, it just appears and disappears by changing the color to the transparent from this white color. And to fix this, we simply need to add a white space, no wrap, and that means that we don't want our text to wrap. And we need to also specify overflow to hidden. And now, as you can see, it works as expected. Alright, the third trick is behind us, so let's move forward to the next one. The next trick is small but extremely useful. Let's imagine you have an article, a book review. You are reading this, enjoying this, and suddenly you run into a spoiler. If you are a smart publisher, you could avoid this by using a trick like this. If you have something that could be a spoiler, you can hide it, but if the user wants to reveal this, he can simply hover this and voila, he can see the text. But he can read without a fear that he will run into the spoiler. Let's do this. Again, I have created a new file, and this time the background is white, and as you can see, I have added a text over here, and I've wrapped this inside of a simple container, and this container adds a margin to the left and to the right, and this will just make this demo to present better itself. I also changed a font family to Arial and changed a line height to 150%. So it is like a starting setup and not really related to the trick I will teach you right now. Alright, let's start coding. First thing that you should notice is the class spoiler that I have added to the paragraph that I want to hide. So let's use this class spoiler. Spoiler. And now I will set the color of this paragraph to transparent, and I will set the background position to the right, background position to the right, and the background size to 100, 100. Do not worry, in a second I will explain what all these properties do for us. And now let's add a background image, linear gradient. Now inside of the parentheses I will add two HSL colors, 0, 0, and let's start with 50%, and let's add the second color exactly the same, 0, 0%, 50%. Let's make it a bit lighter, let's say 70%. Alright, and let's create our animation. And this time we'll use a transition property, and we will set it to 0.5 seconds is in out. So the transition is like an animation but a bit simpler, and it allows us to change smoothly from one property value to the another. And we are specifying the duration of the animation and the speed curve. So it will start slowly and then speed up and then slow down, as you remember from the previous tricks. And I've made a typo here. It should be color, not columns. And now our text disappears as it should. And now let's add the final pseudo class, spoiler hover. And on hover we want our text back, so it should have again color black. And we want to decrease the background size. Background size to 0%, 100%. Alright, almost done. So to make it looks better, we'll change the display to inline, and thanks to this covering background will cover exactly the same amount of space as the text. So as you can see, without this, it's just one solid block of gray background, but with display inline, it covers exactly the amount of space that we want. And right now, when we hover this effect doesn't look very nice, but if we set a background repeat to no repeat, it looks really good. Alright. A word of explanation to the properties that we've used. The background position we set to the right, so when we hover, it starts rolling up from the left side to the right, and if we change it to the left, it will start rolling up from the opposite side. And here we simply are using background size 100% to cover all the text. If we change it to 0, it will just disappear. Alright, we've done with this trick. Let's move to another example. In the next trick, we'll use an image and set it as a background to our text, and we will animate it like this. That's a really cool effect. Let's do this. Alright, I started another file with a very similar settings to the similar tricks. The one difference is that I've imported another font called Red Hat Display. You will find a link to this font in the description of this video, and I applied this font to the body. inside of my HTML, my H1 heading, I have a text Black Lives Matter, and I've set a color to this text to white. The first thing I want to do is to increase the size of my font. So I will use relative unit viewport width, so font size 10 viewport width. And thanks to this, because these viewport width units are relative to the window, when we decrease the size of the window, it stays responsive. It reacts to the size of the window. That's a useful stuff. All right, let's move forward. I will use this image as a background for my text. So let's set a background to URL, and let's add a text, this address of the image inside. Now I want to resize this image in the background to 40%. All right. Now let's set a background position exactly to the middle. So 50-50%. And now we'll use the same trick that we used in the project before. We'll clip the background to the text. And to do this, we need to use a WebKit background clip property, and let's clip it to the text. And as you can remember, it's invisible right now because we need to make our text transparent. So if we change this to transparent, now we can see our text. Sorry, not the text, the image. All right, let's create an animation. So I will name this animation zoom out, because this is what we'll do with this animation, and it will last 10 seconds. I will use is default value, and it will last 0.5 second forwards. In a second, I will explain you in details what all these values do to this animation. Now let's add the keyframes. Let's use our animation, zoom out, and let's set it from background size 40% to background size 10%. And after saving the file, it works as expected. So word of explanation about this value, this keyword forward. So before this, after finishing our animation, it would jump back to the first keyframes. Have a look. It zoom out, and after it finish, it jumps back to the first keyframes. So we need this to just keep the final size. Alright, let's move to another trick. The last trick is really awesome. We'll use a video as a background to our text. Have a look at this sail text with a video, sailing video in the background of this text. Alright, let's do this. The same as before, I've created another file with a similar setup as before, and I've imported another font. It's called Sierra Stencil 1, and the same as previously, you will find a link to this font in the description of this video. And now let's move further to the next steps. First of all, we need to add a video. So here above H1 heading, let's add a video tags. And inside of the video, we need to add a source elements. And in this source, we will add src attribute, and we will specify will provide a link to the video, and I will use this video, but you can use, of course, whatever you want. Just remember it should be in MP4 format to work properly. So I will add it here, and let's add an attribute type video MP4 just for accessibility reasons. And here in the video we'll add a few attributes: autoplay, because we want it to autoplay, we want it to be muted, and we want it to loop, because after finishing we want it to repeat. Alright, now we can see our video. Next, let's take care of this video, and we want to set the position of this video to absolute, and we want it to be aligned to the top left corner. So let's add top 0 and left 0 as well, and we want the width to be 100% and the same high 100%. And we want this video to fit the screen, so we will use a property object fit, and we will use a value cover. And now it covers the entire available space. Now let's take care of our heading. So the same as our video, we want it to be absolute position and the same top left corner. Now I want to use a property mix blend mode and blend it with the screen, and in a second you will understand why. I will explain to you it a bit later. Now, as you can see, our word is in the top left corner, but it will disappear for a second because we need to remove this color, because with this our effect with a video as a background won't be visible. Alright, so right now we need to add a few more things. Let's set a width of our heading to 100 of available space and the same high. Let's set margin to 0. And now let's set a background color of our text to white. And as you can see, our text is still in the top left corner, and the video is set as a background of this text, but because it's very small we cannot see it. So let's increase the size of our text. Font size, let's say 28, viewport width, and font weight. Let's set it to 40, so a bit lighter. And now let's center it exactly in the middle, vertically and horizontally, and we will use a flexbox for this. So display, flex, and then align items to the center to align it vertically, and justify content center to align it horizontally. And at the end, let's transform it to uppercase. As you can see, it works as expected. So the most important property here is mix blend mode, which allows us to blend our video, our background video with a text, and thanks to this we can achieve this effect. If we remove this, it's just black background in our text. And that was 6 CSS tricks for text animations. I hope you like it and you learned something useful from this. If yes, give a thumbs up to this video. In the description of this video you will find a link to the source code with all the examples I show you during this tutorial. By the way, did you know that thanks to MD Bootstrap you can use free hosting for your projects? We call it MDBGo and it's really great. Visit mdbgo.com for more information. In the description of this video you will also find a link on how to use MDBGo hosting and how to install MDB CLI, which is a fantastic and free supporting tool that provides many useful features and functionalities. Now let me just show you how easy it is to publish our newly created project on the internet thanks to MDBGo. I already have MDB CLI installed on my computer, so all I need to do right now is to run my terminal and enter the directory where we have our project. So here is the folder where I have created the files for my CSS tricks for animations. So let me just copy this path and I will enter this path in the terminal, and right now I just need to type a single command, mdb publish. I will choose npm package manager, and now all I need to do is to choose a name for my project. So I will name it Text Animations. Then let's accept all other options, and after a few seconds my project is available in the internet at this link. Let's see if it works. I need to copy the link. Alright, now as you can see I have a few files here. So let's see, for example, a video, so /video HTML, and yes, it works as expected. Let's see another project, the same. What else? Hover glow works as well. So extremely useful and super fast. Strongly recommend it to you. That's it for this tutorial. Let me know in the comments if you found it useful. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and see you in the next video.